Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam, and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that usually connects you with the best movies on streaming, but today I'm bringing you 5 random reviews of recently released movies. Some are available to stream, a couple are still in theaters, but they'll be available to watch at home soon. In this video, we're going to be talking about X-Men. No, not X-Men. The movie X and the movie Men. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That's the title of one movie, not 3. The Northman, and Chippendale Rescue Rangers, which is where we're going to start this list because I'm not going to spend too long on this family-friendly movie. However, this was a real surprise of a movie. Now, I watched Chippendale Rescue Rangers as a kid and would have never expected a straight-to-streaming reboot to be nearly this good. But Andy Samberg and John Mulaney voice Chippendale, and they're basically playing this like a classic buddy comedy. This takes place 30 years or so after the Chippendale cartoon was on the Disney Channel or wherever it was. And they're playing these older, estranged friends that are kind of washed up showbiz types, and it's really funny, especially with those two guys doing the voices. There's a lot of adult-centered humor here, but it's never really inappropriate, and if it is a little inappropriate, at the very least, it's incomprehensible to your children. And the mix of animation styles, there's multiple animation styles in this movie with live action, isn't as mind-blowing as it was back when Roger Rabbit was originally released, but they do make really good use of that gimmick, and there's a lot of visual jokes in this movie that work really well. I mean, I felt like this movie was constantly going the extra mile, and in my experience, which is experience with a lot of straight-to-streaming movies, they don't normally put that much extra effort into these straight-to-streaming family movies, especially on Netflix. But right now, in terms of straight-to-streaming family movies, obviously Disney Plus is killing it. Now, there's nothing else for the family on this list. In fact, these movies get increasingly more intense as this list goes on. My next pick being Robert Eggers' latest movie, The Northman. If that name doesn't sound familiar, he's done 2 other feature films, The Witch and The Lighthouse. The Northman, however, is his simplest story. This is based on an old Norse legend that apparently inspired Shakespeare to write Macbeth. You get the basic plot of Macbeth in The Northman, but in no way does this feel like an adaptation of Macbeth. Robert Eggers does go into that dark, sort of ethereal territory with The Northman, but he doesn't go there and stay there the way he has with his other films. I liked The Witch. I enjoyed The Lighthouse. This is my favorite movie of his so far. However, I am hearing that people that really loved his previous 2 movies are not as hot on this one, probably because it is a little bit simpler and more subdued. Apparently, the studio did need to rein Eggers in a little bit on this one, or at least that's what's been reported, and in a rare case, I think that's actually worked. I'm normally not in favor of a studio sort of squashing any ideas that a creative director like Eggers might have, but the more subdued nature of this movie, I think, makes it much more rewatchable than his other movies. I mean, honestly, The Lighthouse, for me personally, again, I enjoyed it and thought it was a really interesting piece. It's such an ordeal to get through. It makes it not rewatchable for me. In fact, that first viewing, I've only seen it once, is still with me pretty strong. The Northman, however, I cannot wait to rewatch this movie. It is easily one of my favorite things I've seen released in 2022 so far. And this is just a beautiful movie. It's one of his best looking movies to date. Just the locations are beautiful and the movie's really patient. And that's kind of the point. The story, not just of Macbeth, but of this Norse legend, is kind of one of patience, or at least that's one of the themes. So again, just a really great sort of art house film that doesn't go too far, is not going to lose the audience. It's a really nice balance from a director that has done some really wild stuff in the past. But speaking of wild stuff, my next pick is one of the wildest things I've seen in years. It's also one of the freshest, coolest, most interesting movies I've seen, again, in years. This is directed by Daniels, which are 2 people. It's Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. They both directed Swiss Army Man. Now, I will say, if you were a fan of Swiss Army Man, you need to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once.
There's a great evil spreading throughout the many verses. And you may be our only chance of stopping it.
I mean, the level that they jumped up to with this movie is nothing short of incredible. In fact, this is one of those rare movies where I am amazed that it got made. I mean, in terms of like a fantasy movie with lots of action, this is a lower budget movie, but it doesn't show. My point is, even though it's quote unquote lower budget, there's a lot of money being spent here, and it is such a wild concept on paper. It's amazing to me that people gave them money to make this movie. However, it works in a way I never would have expected. Now, I will say, if you did not like Swiss Army Man, there's way less farting in Everything Everywhere All at Once, way less. But as weird as this movie is, I do think it's much more accessible. You just need to go into it expecting something unlike anything you've ever seen before. Everything Everywhere All at Once has a lot of heart to it and is a really wonderful movie at moments, and then at other moments it is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. Michelle Yeoh is fantastic. She's the lead. This is one of her most amazing roles, and she has done some legendary stuff over the years. She's on screen in almost every shot. Her character is incredibly complex, and some of the physicality required for this movie at her age is unbelievable. I mean, I know she still does action movies from time to time. I'm telling you, this movie is just next level on all levels. Jamie Lee Curtis has one of the most amazing roles I've ever seen her do, especially in her older age. She is famous for sort of embracing her older age, and as a result, she's getting cast in some fantastic stuff. This being one of them, it's also just one of the best characters I've ever seen her play. And then Short Round from the Temple of Doom makes an amazing return to the big screen. Ke Huy Quan has not been in movies for what seems like decades now. He was famous as a young kid for being in the Temple of Doom and Goonies.
Hey lady, you call him Dr. Jones.
And he is spectacular in this movie, and I'm not just saying that as a fanboy that used to love him in those movies as a kid. He really made this movie work, and he's going toe-to-toe with a legendary actor like Michelle Yeoh. It's fantastic stuff from beginning to end. Just a real wild ride that maybe is a little bit too long. I was pretty exhausted when it was over, but still, I can't wait to watch this one again. All right, the one that I know a lot of you have been wanting me to review, Ty West's latest feature, X.
One of the boys found this inside.
What do you think is on it?
I see one damn up horror picture.
It's been nearly 10 years since Ty West's last feature film, The Sacrament. I really enjoyed portions of that movie. His other movies I also enjoyed, and they're very highly critically acclaimed, The House of the Devil and The Innkeepers. That said, I think X is his best and most successful movie in terms of storytelling and directing. In X, a group of pornographers, I guess that's what we'll call it for this review, go out to this farmhouse to shoot a porn movie. This takes place in the 70s. It's got a great funky 70s aesthetic and is way more graphic than I thought it was gonna be. I mean, I had heard that it was. Obviously, they're filming pornography. It is much more graphic than I expected it to be, especially with some of the actors involved. I mean, Brittany Snow has been around for a while. She made my eyes pop out of my head more than once in this movie. But that's not really the reason to watch this. This is a classic grindhouse, drive-in type movie. If you've ever been a fan of Joe Bob Briggs, either his writing or one of his many shows, it's the type of movie he often talks about, yet it's done in the modern day, which we don't get many of anymore. Maybe a couple of good ones a year at best, and X is certainly one of the best in recent years. It's also fairly long for a movie of this kind because there's a lot going on in it. There were even times where I felt like there was maybe a little bit too much. Now, I will say, with no spoilers, that the lead character, or at least what we'll call the lead, Mia Goth, she actually plays two characters in this movie. See if you can spot the second one. I personally think spotting it is a little bit important because it gives some more weight to some of the themes that are going to be particularly off-putting. That's right, even though there are some hot moments in this movie, there are also some really creepy moments that are going to get under your skin, yet all of that stuff was done in, I think, a really effective way. Now, I'm not recommending this for everyone, but this movie actually reminded me of two movies specifically, both directed by Tobe Hooper. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're gonna get Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes as soon as this movie kicks off. And then Eaten Alive is a movie Tobe Hooper did after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's not as good, but I'm partial to Eaten Alive. I've talked about it several times on the channel over the years. I do recommend it as kind of a hidden gem grindhouse horror movie. To me, X falls somewhere in between those two. It's really solid stuff. Even if it's highly derivative, Ti West is doing interesting things with the genre, breaking and bending some rules in a manner, again, can't say it enough, that works really well. So if you're a fan of this genre and you're not squeamish at all, then X is going to be a fantastic watch. It is available to rent now at that basic $5 rental price. Check it out if you've been waiting to watch it. And then finally, we'll finish this video with my review of Alex Garland's Men.
Apple from the garden?
Yeah, it was delicious.
No. Mustn't do that. Forbidden fruit.
Oh, God, sorry,
I'm joking.
Oh.
So just like Robert Eggers, this is Alex Garland's third feature film, or at least the third one that he's directed. The other two are Ex Machina and Annihilation, which I'm a little more partial to. I actually did a full video on Annihilation years ago when I was in a different studio. I'll put a link to that in the top pinned comment, along with the full list of all the movies I've talked about in this video. It's only 5, but it's hard to keep up sometimes. Alex Garland also wrote and directed a fantastic show called Devs. It aired on FX, but you can catch it on Hulu right now. And then he also is famous for writing 28 Days Later and Sunshine, 2 fantastic movies. So the guy's got a fantastic pedigree. Men, however, might be the weirdest thing he's ever done. I'll also say this is his most simple story, at least on the surface, and his most confusing. And I think the simplicity is kind of what makes it confusing, because there's not enough context clues for me to grab onto and really figure out what he's trying to say, and all of that feels pretty intentional. Now that's my long-winded way of saying this movie is not for everyone. This is not even for people who liked his previous films. If you liked Ex Machina and you didn't really enjoy Annihilation that much, I think Men is gonna be an even farther reach for you. If you were not already interested in it, this movie becomes so off-putting at times, I honestly don't feel good about recommending it to you. But if you have been interested in Garland's work, again, he's doing something that's simpler, somehow weirder by being simple, and it's really confusing, yet I do think that there's something really interesting happening here. I've yet to decipher it all. It's taking me much longer to pick apart all the pieces, even though there's less of them. Again, it's very confusing, but his other films were so tight and put together and had such a good point once you reflected on them long enough that I suspect Men will do the same, maybe on a second viewing. However, again, there are moments so off-putting, I may never watch this again. Now, I will say Jessie Buckley carries this movie. She's the lead. She's in almost every shot. She is fantastic. She doesn't speak for a lot of the movie because she's in this country house all by herself, yet she makes all of the fear and tension work. I was thoroughly creeped out through this entire movie. That said, Rory Kinnear is the star of the movie. One of the gimmicks of this movie that you do get from the trailer, so there's no spoilers, is as an actor, he's playing multiple characters. That gimmick works so well because his performance is so killer in this movie. It's honestly the main reason to watch this movie, or at least the main reason to pursue it. Do not expect to walk away from Men understanding what it's about. If anything, I think the title might be a little bit of a red herring. That has been the case with his other films. But this movie is not for the faint of heart whatsoever, so if it's not for you, hopefully you enjoy one of the other 5 movies on this list. If you like this format of 5 random recent reviews, let me know in the comments down below and I'll do another one for you. But I will keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special episode, and you will see me on the next one.